So we've got Dr. Janine Davis, we have Karen Nguyen, Dr. Kokwase Pumbluku, and Dr. Franklin Kwarku with us this morning. And thank you all for being here. We really appreciate your time and coming together to engage with the growers and give us some important information. So with that, I'm going to mute my microphone, Dr. Davis, and we'll let you have it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Leslie. So what she asked me to cover with you this afternoon was us to just go over this grower data log. And my associate, Margaret Bloomquist, is the one who really put a lot of effort into this with Leslie. So I'm kind of looking at it with fresh eyes with you right now, too. So let's go through it together. If anyone has any questions about how this should be filled out, please, let's just bring it up and get that dealt with right now, because we're all going to be busy. I know we're going to be whipping these out real quickly and trying to be very efficient. And I want you to know that we recognize that. I do a lot of data collection, so making it as quick and easy as possible is the best way to go. So anything that works for you and how you want to handle this in terms of carrying paper copies, or if you have a way to do this on a tablet, feel free to do that. So this is just a sample page of what it would look like. This is John Hendricks showing his southern peas and his sweet corn and his 4 varieties. And please just go ahead and ask a question if you have it. Karen or Leslie, can they just do that? Just speak up right now if they need to?
Yes, that'll be just fine. Since we just have a couple folks on, that I don't think that should be any problem.
Okay, great. And so what you're going to do in the beginning is just mark whether you're planting it in beds or just in rows, yes or no. Feel free to put in any notations on the side here that you think would be helpful. Then just so we can do some comparisons of yields, that's why we want really good information on your bed spacing and the width of your beds and bed height and stuff. That'll help us later on as we're comparing from site to site. Getting your GPS coordinates for your area is really simple. You can just do that on a Google map, pull up your address, put it in satellite mode, and just click where your field is, and it will give you the coordinates, and you'll see how those will look, and that'll let us know exactly where you are. Finding your soil type, that kind of depends on your state as to how easy that is to do. Leslie, have we found a federal way to do that, to get the soil type?
I believe it's the USGS website that we should be able to do that, but we'll confirm, and I'll make a note. I have a quick question from Alchemy Farms that came over the chat. It says, do you want the bed spacing from bed to bed center or the size of the bed?
For the spacing from bed to bed, go center to center. That's pretty standard. Okay? That answer your question?
Also, web soil survey, I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with that for pulling up soil maps, but we could send a link out. You just enter your address and you can identify your whole farm and see all your different soil types.
Say the name again, Karen.
It's a web soil survey.
Okay.
I'll email you the link.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, for some of us, I think it's a little easier to get that information than others. And I know for some farmers, they never had any idea of what the soil type name was. So it's kind of interesting. So with mulching, we're just trying to find out what everyone's using, and then that will be able to help us track how that affects yields and quality, and also just how many hours you put into weeding, you know, using straw versus black plastic, and we'll be able to do some economics. With irrigation, just indicate whether you're using drip or overhead, I think is going to be most. I don't know that anyone's using furrow, but indicate that, and then, you know, how you're doing it. Are you working with any kind of moisture sensor, any kind of aerometer, or are you just doing it as needed or several times a week? As much information as you can give us on your fertilizer, the types you're using, if it's a commercial product or if you're using a compost that you make, and the rate and how often you're putting that on. You know, many of us go ahead and do like a fish emulsion through our drip irrigation lines through the season. Be sure to note that. And then, of course, things happen. You maybe had a flooding issue this past week that you might want to note down under your unexpected issues. Hopefully, you're not going to have too many of those, but if you do, you can write on the back of the page. We're then asking for your crop layout, and I know a number of these are coming in from the 15 farmers that I am working with. So, you know, this doesn't have to be a fine work of art. You can just sketch this out, but just to give us a good idea of what your plot plan is going to look like. And then we get into details about each of your crops, when you're sowing them. I do have a question, Leslie, for you, because I don't remember what we meant about location seeds sown. What does that mean?
That would be like, were they sown in the greenhouse or were they sown in the field?
Very good. That makes perfect sense, and I would not have known that from that.
Okay, we'll definitely make a note.
Sure. So were those direct seeded in the field, or did you sow those into flats and grow them in a greenhouse? Glad I asked that question. Then, of course, when you transplanted and the first when you cultivated them. Just whatever you can give us about germination details so we can compare varieties and maybe methods is how that's affecting germination. And you don't have to sit there and count every individual seed. You're all experienced farmers. You can get a good idea of how much you've germinated based on, you know, how much you think you sowed. Then we're going to do just some ratings ourselves. Take as many pictures as you can think of to take, because those are very, very helpful to us. But uniformity, you know, look at those plots of that particular variety. Is it pretty uniform? Is it not? Is it poor uniformity? Or wow, look at how uniform this variety is. The same thing with vigor. This is your own judgment. Are those poor vigor plants or average or, you know, really exceptional? Let's see, we've got another question from Alchemy Farms. Will you provide information for the plants slips you are providing? I have no idea when slips were planted or ever transplanted. Mine sometimes go through 2 transplants before final. So I'm assuming we're talking about the sweet potatoes. Do we know when we're going to get delivery of those?
Those should be coming anytime. There was a little bit of a delay. The ones that were supposed to go out May 22nd, I believe, are going to be just a few days later. So if you haven't received sweet potato slips by June 1st, definitely please let us know. And as far as this information that's needed, I can get with New Sprout Organics, or you can contact them directly. And get that information. I'm sure they're like an amazing company. I've been really impressed with their willingness to just give us whatever we need to have, so we can get that info, I bet.
They're good folks. I'll pass on that word. But yeah, don't feel embarrassed if this is the first time you've grown them. You know, we're all going to be learning some of this together. That's a good thing. Then we get down in the pest and disease observation log, and Franklin might have some comments that he wants to make here too. But again, you're all experienced at doing this. You probably just haven't had to jot it down before. But, you know, mark off what thing you're looking at. You don't have to mark down if there's no problem. But if you're starting to see something, for example, flea beetle damage, just mark the date, the row, what variety you're working with, and make an observation. And, you know, if it's just a little bit, you mark it a 1. If it's pretty severe, you mark it a 3. And you'll see we have lots of room for you to do that. I'm hoping you don't fill up but the first page. Then we get into our yield logs when we get to that point. And we would like you to record the weight of the product from each row. So this is the place where we run into trouble with many of our on-farm tests. Often up to this point, everything goes fine. There's usually one person on the farm who is responsible for taking all the notes, and that works great. It's when we get into the harvest that things can get a little out of hand. So before you get there, plan this out so the mix-ups don't happen, because you're probably harvesting everything else at the same time. and come up with a system so that these rows can be harvested individually, however you want to set up your bucket or tote system to do this, and those weights get taken. Right then and there, you might want to go ahead and separate out your marketable from your unmarketable. And then you can move on with handling that product if you're taking it to market or donating it. But this is the place where we often lose data, and this is very, very critical data. So if you have any questions on that as we get to that point, or you want some ideas, Leslie, this might be something that we would like to make a video with someone to just show a way to keep the confusion from happening and our test crops just going away along with all the other crops.
Okay, so a video on yield, on the whole managing, weighing, and all of that.
Just an idea on those of us that have worked with on-farm trials and have had the mix-ups happen. Maybe just some little ideas that we do. I know we work with different colored buckets. So if I was on an on-farm trial and they usually use red buckets for their harvest, I'd come in with blue or yellow or something that looked really different. So when the crew's out there working, my buckets look different and they don't touch them. Okay. And you could do something similar to that for the test rows.
Interesting. Great. Okay, we'll definitely come up with that.
Mm-hmm. Just trying to make it simple, because I know everybody wants to do a good job, and it's real embarrassing to have to say, I didn't get that week's harvest. So we're expecting lots of harvests, as you can see. And then there's always a place to put notes. And some of you are really good at noting things that we wouldn't even have thought about, problems either with the way we're doing the on-farm tests or with the crops that you're growing. Whatever you think of that is like, man, when I do this next year, I don't want to do it this way again, jot that down. And if you have a way that we could do it better, jot that down. This is, we're all in this big project together, and that's something I want to cultivate. This is for us all to improve organic vegetable production in the Southeast. So everyone's input is valuable. Okay, with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks so much, Janine. I did want to add one little thing that a grower partner sent in, and that our data grower logs are missing, and that is an area to record pesticide treatment. So we really need to get that log out to folks as well. So for now, if you do come across any, if you do use organic pesticides, OMRI-approved pesticides, of course, please just take notes on the back of one of your pages for now, and we will send out a log for that. So if anyone has any questions, I know there might be a couple people who are not on the chat or at a computer and maybe calling in by phone. So please, I'm just going to kind of open the floor right now for any questions that you have.
Leslie, I'm sorry, it's Marguerite here. This is probably a dumb question, but going back to that same problem about the tracing, I see the certification for our potatoes, but you want us to fill in information on, when they planted their slips, when they, I'm looking for that grower log now, that, the information about when they had it sown, where they sowed it, the days it was transplanted. Do we need to put anything in there since we didn't start to see?
No, but I will get that information from New Sprout, and so yeah, don't worry about that.
Okay.
Is that legitimate? I should ask the researchers.
Yeah, I mean,
to make sure.
As far as I'm concerned, I don't need to know any of that information for my organic certification.
Okay.
I just need it for the certificate to show that it came from a organic farm and it's organically certified. But other than that, I don't need to know it. I'm just guessing that you may need it for your own.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm really glad you brought it up. Thanks so much, and we'll make a point to get that information from New Sprout. Thank you, Marguerite.
Yeah, growers. This is Kukuwase here. Growers don't need that information. So, for us, we just need to know exactly how old those slips were when they were sent to us. That's all, really.
But that organic certification information is important for them to have on their records too. And
Yeah, I think
they're
that,
listed on the national database, so that's all we've ever had to be able to demonstrate to our certifier.
yeah, I think that Leslie has done a good job getting all the information from the vendors, and I saw that she sent the information to all the growers. Right? Leslie, is that true, right?
That's correct. In the back of your grower data log folder should be the certification information from the vendor where your seeds came from. So they are not all organic seeds, but they are definitely all untreated seeds. So yeah, just y'all let me know. And remember, send any questions or follow up to organic@tuskegee.edu regarding seeds. Okay, are there any more questions about the grower data log or anything that's missing, or, you know, hey, this would be helpful that, you know, because we've got a lot of great minds on here, but the grower partners weren't with us necessarily the whole way through. So we want to just harvest all those great ideas as we go here. So please definitely share thoughts. I'm reading through the chat here, making sure we haven't missed anybody.
I have one more stupid question. I feel like I'm always asking all these questions.
Hey, please do.
Okay, if I remember correctly, the key thing was it had to be growing out in the open field. So we cannot use, I know that you were giving us a lot of leeway as to how we grow stuff, but for this particular research project, everything has to be open field, no covers, no shading, nothing. And even, I mean, like, for example, I mean, like, if I want to use T-post because I'm hanging stuff, does that matter? Or
Kokwase, I'll let you answer that.
What, hanging what? Like, what are you hanging?
Well, not hanging, but for example, I do a lot of okay, Karen knows how weird I am. So for example, let's take peppers, for example. Usually when I grow stuff, I will actually, you know, for some reason, peppers and me, I just don't normally grow peppers, but that's why I picked that one as a strange one. But I actually saw something where I would like to try actually where they use T-posts, and I guess basically it's to hold the plants up vertically.
Oh
Yeah, that's fine.
yeah,
Yeah,
we
you can do that.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
then what about as far as multi? Because the other thing I do in mine is that after I grow a certain plant, I will usually add, like, say, my clover underneath. In this particular case, I got this crazy idea this year. Last year, I did sweet potatoes on our own, and what we did was we actually had things growing inside of it with tomatoes, just because I was curious to see whether or not we could do multi-cropping all in the same area. Do you want us to not do that, or can we, if we wanted to add clover at the bottom or lettuce at the bottom, to see whether or not it would work? Because sweet potatoes are great, they're a bottom grower, but they cover all of the dirt, so you don't have to worry about weeds. Can we plant other stuff in there, or is it just, hey, this is all we're doing is this one, no multi-growing?
Well, I will prefer that you don't do that.
Okay.
But if that's the management type that you have adopted in your practices, then go ahead and we will see, you know, how that yield compares to other yields from other growers who do not practice that kind of, you know, management style. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Dr. Pombluku, should we consult Dr. Kwarku? I know he was just stepped away for a minute regarding how that may affect pest or entomological studies.
Yeah, let me try. Okay, so my belief is the soil should always be covered. I find that when I do that, I hate weeding. I hate physical work. So if I'm growing, for example, peppers, at the bottom, there's a lot of soil space underneath. And so what I was wondering is, do you have a problem with me covering it with, and I don't use plastic on any of my stuff. So I will do a living crop underneath. Like, for example, when I usually do tomatoes, I will also usually grow lettuce underneath it, just to keep the dang thing covered. Do you have a problem with that with the peppers, you know? or what I'm doing?
Well, for pests, if you have a large variety of crops and you have a lot of diversity, it reduces the pest density of a particular pest because you have a diversity of crops. Okay, so if you have more than one thing growing at a place, but if you overdo it and the plants are competing, maybe their roots are taking nutrients from the same zone and the plant is less healthy, then plants that are not healthy are their tolerance of pests is less. So if you plant too many things closely together and the roots are taking nutrients from the same zone, which makes each plant not as healthy as it should be, then anything that attacks them, they are more susceptible. If diseases come for them, it will be a major problem. If insects, but generally, when you do mixed cropping or you plant more than one crop, which increases the diversity, you don't have the situation where you have one pest that just explodes in population. So it reduces the general
Right. Right. Like I was saying, we usually do this multi. Like I said, I don't believe in any soil being open. So do you mind if we do that? Or I think Dr. Kumbasa was just saying he did not want, like he would prefer it to be completely just leave it traditional, and that's okay with me. I could do that because you're not asking us to plant like a huge amount here. It's not very big. I mean, 2 40-foot plots and 15-feet plots, and so.
Margaret, I think that you heard the aspect of the entomologic.
Right.
You heard what Dr. Kwako said. But in terms of soils, that's a whole new ball game. And nutrient availability is the key.
Right.
If you plant something else that is taking the nutrient from the soil, then your main crop is not going to have that nutrient.
Right.
So that's why it is discouraged. But again, I have seen people planting between the between rows of their main crop, planting something. But again, you have to wait until your main crop reaches certain level of maturity before you do that, so that you don't have competition in terms of nutrient availability. So to your main crop.
Right, I agree. I mean, because we've done this for the last 3 years this way, so we're pretty comfortable doing it this way. And like you said, normally in this particular case, I think for this particular one, because we're opening up a new field for this research, I think our intention was we're actually going to be using, let's say peppers, for example. If I'm putting peppers in, I'm probably planning to sow clover underneath those peppers. So I'm just saying, for my practice, do you have a problem with me doing that? Can I just do that for my practice, or?
That would just be your mulch.
That's a living mulch?
Yes,
that's correct.
Yeah, but Margaret, again, at what stage are you going to introduce the clover?
I usually put well, first of all, my pepper plants, I think I already told Leslie, we already transplanted. They've been growing. They are more than ready to go into this ground now. So our thing is, once we get that in there, we usually go ahead and sow. I'm not competing on the seeds with my peppers, because my peppers are already, honestly, close to about 1 foot tall now. So we'll get them in the ground, and then I'm going to sow the clover in there. Now, how well the clover will do in the summer because it's hot, I don't know, but I really don't like having open space. And I know the problem I have at this new this new area that we opened, it was a pasture. So I am going to be fighting tooth and nail against my favorite type of grass, Bermuda grass, and I'm not looking forward to it. So that's why that's why as soon as we clear it, in fact, my husband even talked me into allowing him to rototill it one more time. And I hate rototilling, but we have to do that to open this up. And then I'd like to make sure it's sown completely with a living mulch on top of the compost that we have on there already. So,
Karen, what is your experience with that in farms?
I don't know how well the clover will do either in the summer, but I think planting something I imagine, Marguerite, you're pretty good about getting enough fertilizer to your plants
Yeah.
that they're, that's not going to be an issue. But I mean, personally, I would think that as long as you document everything, that everyone's production systems are going to be pretty different. And if you end up being an outlier, maybe that will explain it a little bit.
Yeah, that's my middle name, right, Karen?
Actually, we've done this, and we've done this with pepper. We were actually looking at labor. What does it take to keep an area weeded? And we did it with peppers, and we used bare ground, black plastic, straw, and clover. And clover did really well.
Did it? Okay, that's good. I mean, because like I said, we do use clover, which is why I'm going to put clover there and not like a salad. The ones I have at my other location that you guys came to, I normally do use a salad. But when I go to harvest it, I don't want to be pulling up weeds. I told you I hate labor. So this new place that we're putting it into, the intention was to compost it, mulch it with compost, and then go ahead and add the clover. Because if the clover takes over, I'm okay with clover. I am just going to have a problem with Bermuda grass, I know. And I'm not going to put black plastic. I really don't like that,
Well,
Okay.
I think that go ahead and do that. That's going to be an experiment for all of us.
Just take from the coordinator standpoint, just make sure to take all good notes on your data log and just make all of those notes very clear on there, and it will be
I will.
a fun experiment. Okay. So at this point, is that all okay? Karen, go ahead.
I just had one other thing I was thinking of during this conversation was, I don't know how many people are using row covers. Is that recorded anywhere? I'm just thinking of.
That's exactly what I was going to ask too, but I think Dr. Kay said that no row covers or anything, right? You just want everything open.
No. When you say open, now what we don't want is greenhouse or any type of cover, not covering the soil. You can put plastic down.
Oh, but I mean like a floating row cover for insect control. It's a.
Yeah, it works great.
For squash, cucumbers, it's really good.
Floating row covers. It sounds like a whole video.
I'm sure
There's a lot of those too.
Yeah, that's why I picked peppers, because like Karen was saying, floating row covers are great, but I know that I was under the misconception we could not use row covers or anything. So I myself personally, like, okay, what do I not usually like growing that I don't have to worry about, so okay, thank you.
Franklin, I think you want to say something.
Yes, with the row covers, I mean, let's just know what you are doing, because this is IPM. You are trying to solve the problem using many other methods as possible, and this happens to be one of the methods people use. The only issue is that if you are dealing with a plant that needs to be pollinated, at some point then you need to some issue. Yes. So that's all, but it's one of the IPM methods that that is used in the management of pests. I don't have any issues with it. We just need to know that's what you are doing.
Leslie?
Yes, ma'am.
If you want to show my screen right now,
Okay.
I would like to show peppers that are staked and growing with the clover.
Okay. I will make you the presenter now.
And you can just see this picture here of a study we did a few years back in our organic unit. You can see the black plastic mulch treatment behind that, but it worked very, very well for us.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Can you send us a picture of that? I love that.
Sure, I'd be happy to.
You see, I have to prove to my husband. My husband's the opposite side of me, so he thinks a lot of my ideas are crazy. So that's why I want to show him that it actually works.
Okay, what I'll do, I'm going to send to Leslie I will send some info on the study too, because we compared a number of those different treatments.
That is great. And I will make sure it gets out to everyone.
And the objective of that study was all on labor. I mean, we knew we were doing good things for the soil, but for us, you know, that amount of labor we all put into weeding in organic farms is just, we got to figure something out.
Okay, team. Well, I think we better kind of call it a pause on that just for a second, but it's not going to be too much of a transition because we're actually going to move into pest management and preventative pest management. And we're really just going to touch on a couple of tips today. In the future, we are going to be sending out notifications for likely a weekly virtual lunch like we're doing today. Probably a little bit shorter in time, maybe about 30 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes, specific to each of the crops that are in our study. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Karen. I'm sorry, let's start with Franklin. Franklin and Karen, which one was going to start? I can't remember.
Karen is going to start.
Okay, Karen, go ahead. Take it away. And Karen Wynn, thanks so much for your advice here.
All right. Hey, everyone. One thing I did want to mention is Leslie sent out a survey asking everyone if they'd be willing to share their organic system plan. And when we were talking about data sheets, there's so much data in an organic system plan that we can pull out that gives us field histories and cultural practices. And if we, instead of asking everyone a million questions, if we can just glean that from your OSP, that might make everyone's life a little bit easier. But today we wanted to talk about pest management. We're starting to get questions about different specific pests and just general preparation for what's to come. And we're working on putting together some fact sheets. We have some that are just general prevention strategies, and then we're working on some other ones that are focused on each of the 4 crops that are being grown for the research trials. So, and I think it's important to note, like Janine said, everyone's knowledge is, we need everyone's knowledge to do this well. And you know, we're working with 38 organic growers from around the Southeast that have a lot of experience. So we want to get all the information that we can and feedback from all the farmers that are involved and make sure that we have the best recommendations to share with everyone. So, so stay tuned. And of course, this is a terrible time of year to ask people to review documents, so we won't do that quite yet. But in the meantime, we wanted to talk a little bit about just you know, the preventive practices that you can start looking at for this time of year. You know, people are getting crops planted, and you know, we're using all these strategies with organic farmers. You know, you really have to rely on some of these preventive cultural practices to be able to keep pest outbreaks from happening. And even with that, it's not any kind of guarantee, but you know, at least you have a, you know, some kind of chance of having a decent crop. So, you know, so we already talked about some of them, you know, trellising and drip irrigation and using plastic mulch and just, you know, thinking about it as a whole system, a whole farm agricultural natural system where you need to think about, you know, how pests come into your field and how disease enters your field. And so things like keeping leaves dry, or improving airflow by trellising, you know, like Margaret was talking about staking her peppers and staking and pruning tomatoes. That's just such a great way to, at least, you know, if it rains every day, you know, the fungal spores really, you know, have a great opportunity to establish themselves on your plants. But if you have some airflow and you can keep those leaves relatively dry, you can use drip irrigation. Those are all the kind of strategies that that are just essential for a good organic system. And I assume a lot of people on this call are using all those, just a really interesting variety of strategies. So, so Leslie, I don't know if you're going to send out that sort of tip sheet or if you already did.
I haven't yet, but we will. Karen made a great list of general strategies for managing pests, and so I'm going to share that out with everyone.
Okay, but we're really trying to save this for questions today, and so after Franklin talks, if anyone has any specific strategies that they want to share, I think that would be great too.
Okay, and just to quick update on time, we are at 12:15, so we're going to plan to cut it off at 12:30. So we've got a couple minutes to kind of go over this, and then we'll end it with questions. Thanks so much. Okay, Franklin, I think you're up.
Yeah, can you share my screen?
There you go, Franklin. You should be set to go.
Okay. All right. Now, I would like to talk about some of the detection methods that we would want to employ on our farms, because if you don't have early detection, or let me put it this way, if you are an organic farmer and we have a conventional farmer somewhere else, and both of you detect your pest very late, chances are that the conventional grower is going to have what is considered a quick fix to the problem, because most conventional pesticides, let's face it, they are faster acting, they stay working for a longer period of time. So for the conventional farmer, early detection is very key. Okay, so that's why I put these slides out there. You are looking at one of the slides, you see a leaf, and I'm showing that.
Excuse me. We don't see the slides. I don't think that Leslie is able to share the screen of Franklin.
No, Franklin is the presenter now. So, and it's showing here that he is the presenter. Okay. Go ahead without.
Okay.
And we'll share whatever afterwards. So I don't want to spend too much time problem solving on that, if that's okay.
Okay, that's if I can just continue with this. Sorry, you can't see it, but
we'll share it later.
Okay. Yeah. So for some plants, you actually, if you are monitoring for pests and you don't monitor the right way, you can leave your field thinking that you don't have a pest problem, but you may just not be monitoring for that pest the right way. A typical example is if you are trying to check whether you have aphids. Sometimes you look at the plants from the top and they look perfectly fine, unless you turn the leaves and you look at the underside. So these are some of the things that we would want to talk about. And I know a number of us submitted a list of major pests that they were either worried about or have had issues with in the past. We will develop a protocol for monitoring those that have been listed, so you will be able to detect them a lot earlier. Like I said, with the manner in which organic pesticides work, usually they take a longer time. They don't stay active in the environment or on treated surfaces for a very long time. So if early detection is crucial for conventional growers, it's even more crucial for us. And also another main thing is that through some of the discussions we'll be having, we would want to get better at detecting what are pests and what are beneficial. I can show you two types of sting bugs, and as far as people are aware, most folks are aware, they are all pests, but there are actually some sting bugs that are beneficial. So the key is going to be learning to tell our friends, apart from our folks, and so, some of these things we need to know early. And if they are not the kind of people we want on our farms, the decision-making level, how many insects are too many? How many of a particular insect are too many? Because just identifying and spraying an insect because it's there may not be the most financially savvy thing to do, because the number may not justify the amount of money you are spending to deal with them. So these are some of the things we want to deal with. And plus, like I said, knowing how to monitor your field. There are certain pests, you are not going to find them on the edge of the field. By their very nature, they are going to be found around the central part of the field. So if you go walk around the edges and it's okay, I've monitored, I've checked, and there's nothing there. There are certain pests, if you want to monitor or check your plants, you are supposed to do a diagonal cut across, do all kinds of stuff. So we want to be sure that we are monitoring our pests, our fields the right way, so we are in a better position to tell whether we have an issue. Now, there are some insects, and I know some of you, when you call, you are going to be referring to some of the insects by some common names. I have a picture here. It's just a shame I'm the only one looking at it. But let's talk about the corn earworm, for example. It is also called a tomato fruitworm, and it is also called a tomato, the cotton bollworm. Okay, so
what was
sometimes
the first name? I'll see if I can pull a picture up.
Okay, it's corn earworm.
Okay.
It is also called a tomato fruitworm. And it is also called a cotton bollworm. Okay, so sometimes when I get calls from farmers, they are using, and I know I'm an entomologist, but I cannot tell you that I am conversant with all the common names that exist, because different people refer to the same thing. So every now and then you call me and you mention a common name. If you mention the scientific name, I'm comfortable, but most of the time with farmers, we use the common names. So I might ask you to take pictures, and sometimes you might give me a headshot, and that's not what I need for identifying a particular pest. I might ask for a close-up of the abdominal section or something. We can work together and we'll finally figure out what we are looking for. So that's another thing that I would like us to talk about.
Is this culprit? Can you see that, Franklin?
Yeah, I can see it. So that same insect comes under various names, and I want to be sure that sometimes when you are talking to me and I don't seem to know what you are talking about, we can solve that just by taking pictures, and then we will get it identified. Because once we fail in our identification, we are going to be dealing with that pest the wrong way. Another thing I want to talk about briefly, since today we are not talking about any specific crop, like I said, Karen said, we are going to have to organize subsequent sessions where we deal with, let's say, squash. We talk about the major pests that attack it, how to deal with them. But let me say one general thing about how to manage insect pests and how to, which differs from how we manage diseases. Most of the time with insects, if it is a pest, there's a threshold. There's a certain number at which it makes sense in terms of environmental issues, in terms of financial issues, in terms of avoiding crop loss. Well, when it comes to diseases, prevention is even more key. We don't wait for the disease to get to a certain level before we deal. If we know that the conditions are ripe for the disease to occur, this is one place where preventive spraying is encouraged. Well, for both insects and diseases, preventive measures, period, are going to be key. Like I said, the pesticides are the last option. If you have to in IPM, then you use them. But the problem is that the organic pesticides, like I said, they are not typically as fast as the conventional. So the worst thing you can do is to detect your problems very late. Now, another thing that I would want to talk about is for those who are yet to submit a list of pests that are major issues at their location or that they've had issues with in the past or expect to have problems with, please do so, because we want to develop these fact sheets and other materials concerning how to monitor for them, how to deal with them, and then a number of the preventive measures. We talked about drip irrigation, for example. I know some, is there any farmer who wants to use sprinkler irrigation? Is there any farmer who wants to use sprinkler irrigation? Because it comes with its own implications. You have water on the leaves. They are going to be trapping fungal spores like pollen, sort of, and the moist leaf surface is going to hold it onto the surface of the leaves. And the longer the contact between those fungal spores and the on the plants, the more likely it is that you are going to have a disease situation. So there are some cultural practices people use, including method of irrigation that might have pest management or pest infestation implications. So these are some of the general things I want to talk about. And also Janine mentioned flea beetle and scoring. Well, some people might say, oh, we have let's call this a 1, let's call this a 2, and stuff like that. But if you don't mind, if you can, whatever you are scoring, a 1 or a 2, if we can see a picture that shows us what's the level of infestation, it will be very helpful in giving us enough information to tell you it's time to act if you don't want to lose everything. As much as possible, I don't want us to be put in a situation where we are doing what I call revenge spraying. The damage has gone past the point where it makes sense to spray, but out of spite, you are just angry this pest destroyed your crop, so you are investing more money just to kill them to make yourself emotionally satisfied. I call that a revenge spray, and we don't want to find ourselves doing anything like that because it doesn't make economic sense.
Oh, but it feels so good.
All right, fantastic.
Yeah, so that's all I want to say for now. Yeah, and then, like I said, we will go into detailed pest management practices for specific crops. Today, we are just talking in general terms. So.
Very good. Thank you so much, Dr. Kwarku. We really appreciate your expertise and look forward to all the great solutions you're going to have for us this growing season. Is there any questions about specific pests? We have a few more minutes here while we've got all of our experts on the line. So if anyone has any questions, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask away or type in the chat. And Karen, if you have any follow-up information to what Franklin said, please go ahead and share. Or if anyone else, we're just gonna kind of use these last couple minutes to wrap up. Is someone trying to talk? I thought I heard someone.
I guess my one question is this a good day and time of day to have these meetings? And, you know, do you have any topics that you want to cover in the next few meetings? And, you know, and how often would you be able to attend them for the farmers that are on this webinar or whatever it is?
Yeah, it's a webinar. Okay, so any grower questions? Questions from our grower partners?
Should I tell them that it's really difficult because we're super busy?
Was that a comment? I couldn't quite hear it.
Yeah, the comment was, that it's difficult because everyone's super busy.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the way it is no matter what time of day or day of the week we choose. And I think we're just going to have to try to participate as we can. I know there's going to be times that I'm going to be participating via cell phone and Bluetooth while I'm out in the field.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it won't be ideal, but it'll just be the best I can do.
That's right.
Well, and we can archive all of this, so in January you can binge watch.
Yep.
the-
So if we have a couple, 2 or 3 growers at least show up for every meeting. So we might do this once a week. That doesn't mean that you're expected to come once a week and take out time to do it, but definitely try to hit at least a couple, especially for the ones that are specific to the crops you're growing. And we will definitely, like Karen said, we're going to archive and make sure that you have access to all of these. So it could be a fun playlist for later on.
And that also gives us an opportunity to address problems promptly. I mean, if you don't plan on attending the meeting, but you run into a problem, then okay, now you have a problem, and maybe you can show up for the next meeting. Well, of course, we plan on addressing it before then, but this could be another place where we can discuss what you have, because while solving your problem, it may be saving somebody else from encountering that problem later. Yes.
Okay, and Caleb says, pretty good time frame for meetings. So if I find an insect and send it in, could you tell me what could knock it out? So if they want to send in insects, is that?
There is a problem mailing insects because some of them, they are going to be there. If you put them in alcohol and a vial, you can mail them to me. If it's dead and you do the right thing, but if you take a good picture, I will be able to tell you what it is. If the picture is not good enough, I'll tell you, just snap it from this side. So I want us to avoid sending actual sample. You may send the actual sample to the coordinator for your session or the person you work directly with, so the sample is there with that person. But at this point, I will not encourage mailing the samples to me here, because we don't want to lose any time whilst the insect is in transit, trying to figure out what you have. Usually, if the picture is good enough, we should be able to tell you what you have.
Great, thank you, Dr. Gorku. And Caleb, did you have anything else to follow up with that? If you wanted to say anything, you've got the mic. And he says, so be a good photographer. I can do that. Thanks. Okay, great. And also, don't forget to take pictures of the damage as well. If there has been any damage done, if you're just seeing the insect, just do the insect. But if just as much evidence as we can get through photos would be great.
Yeah, that's important.
Okay, team. Well, I'm just going to close us out here. This isn't the end all. So please definitely get a hold of us with any questions on email at organic@tuskegee.edu. Again, I'm just going to reiterate, you can contact your host, your main contact, depending on the state that you're in first, but you can always copy organic@tuskegee.edu on that as well, so that we make sure to have the quickest response that we can to your issue, because we are a big team, so we kind of like to all be in the loop at the same time. I'm going to end it with, well, I already hit on the photos. Just make sure that the photos are as detailed as you can get them. The top side of the bug, the bottom side of the bug, all of that is very helpful if you're able to do that. Please make sure that your email, that organic@tuskegee.edu, is marked as safe in your inbox. I know there are several people that may not be getting our emails, so email is going to be a big part of our communication and staying up to date and making sure that you're aware of these meetings. And I assume all of you know that because you're here today. So we really appreciate you showing up. With that, I will just leave it to anyone else who has any last comments, and we'll wrap it up for today. Okay. Oh, did I hear someone coming on? All right, team. Well, thanks so much. We are the Southeast Organic Partnership at Tuskegee University, and we're so happy to be working with you all. And have a fantastic rest of your day. We'll see you next time.